Hi and welcome to Orbit. Foldable smartphones are pretty cool, but they are really expensive. The Moto Razr 40 is not that expensive. It's the first folding phone that costs less than 1000 euros. The question is it a good folding phone, or do you notice the lower price? Well, not in terms of design. The Moto Razr 40 is a small, solid block when folded. It looks less like a smartphone and more like a fashion accessory. Especially in this cream colorway, it's really stylish. There's also a green and a purple. You don't want to put the smartphone in a case, although there's one included, and you really don't have to put it in a case either. The aluminum frame is matte and it looks extremely durable. There's a soft vegan leather on the front and back, and not only does it feel great in hand, it won't break or shatter like glass. The Razr 40 is thinner and lighter than a normal smartphone, and it's splash-proof despite its folding mechanism. There's a display on the outside. Unfortunately, it's not a really big spectacular one from the Moto Razr 40 Ultra, but it's a slightly less expensive one, I guess. It is 1.5 inch in size, 1000 nits bright, and sits next to the two cameras behind a sheet of Gorilla Glass Victus. It reminds me of the Samsung Flip 4. You can do a few things on this display. Set timers and see the current weather, control music or view upcoming appointments, for example. At the top there are the quick settings, and at the bottom there are all the notifications. You can read them, but you cannot reply to them. Unfortunately, not even with your voice like you can do on Samsung phones. I found it a shame that, unlike the Razr Ultra, you are constantly forced to open the Razr 40 to do something. At least the opening and closing feels nice. The hinge is made out of stainless steel and seems resistant. It's not quite on the same level as Samsung's, but Motorola's crease in the middle of the screen is much more discreet. You can hardly see or feel it. Really amazing. The display is 6.9 inch in size, in a super long 22:9 aspect ratio, and has a maximum brightness of 1400 nits. Because apparently Motorola thinks 120 Hz isn't enough, the Razr 40 has an adaptive 144 Hz screen. What can I say? It's a really good display. It doesn't have to hide from anything or anyone out there. I really enjoyed looking at it. The bezels are relatively thin and perfectly symmetrical. You can fold it in half for video calls, taking pictures, or just because you want to. Despite the smaller outside screen, there's one other big compromise Motorola took to lower the price, and that is the processor. It's a Snapdragon 7 Gen 1, and it's about 40% slower than the Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1 that they used in the Motorola Ultra. If you don't have the direct comparison, you will practically not notice anything. Motorola is extremely good at optimizing Android, and the performance is not inferior to expensive, stronger smartphones. Everything runs perfectly smooth and fast and stable. The Moto Razr Ultra is a little bit faster and smoother, which I noticed because I used it. The Razr 40 has 8 GB of RAM and 256 GB of storage. Unfortunately, it's not UFS 3.1 or even the 4.0 technology. It's the older, slower 2.2. The software is close to stock Android with a few useful Motorola features. First and foremost, I would like to praise the gesture controls. Twisting opens the camera at any time. Chopping twice opens the flashlight. This gets into your muscle-mind connection, and you will miss it on any other smartphone once you are used to it. I think this software is more pretty and more logical than the one on Samsung or Xiaomi phones. Next to the Google Pixel devices, Motorola is my favorite software provider. Android updates will be available for 3 years and security updates for 4 years even. I always got through a day, but not much more. The battery on the Razr 40 is significantly larger than on other folding flip phones. It's almost the size of the Samsung Fold 5, and that's basically a mini tablet. 4200 mAh. That's quite large, and I hoped for a great battery life, one that is even better than the Moto Razr Ultra, but that's sadly not the case. 3 to 4.5 hours of screen on time was the average. However, when you're only in Wi-Fi, the runtime improves significantly. My guess is that the 5G modem manufactured by Samsung is once again too power hungry. I find that a pity because Motorola smartphones are usually the ones with great battery life. At least they included a 30-watt power supply that charges the phone in 30 minutes to 50%, and wireless charging is also available. The Razr 40 has two cameras. The main sensor has 64 megapixel and an f1.7 aperture. Unfortunately, the sad truth is that every flip-style folding phone has not a great camera. This is due to the limited space, but compared to other flip phones, the Razr 40 actually does quite well. It has a nice sharpness, pleasant colors and a natural dynamic range. The ultra-wide angle has 13 megapixel and an autofocus with a pretty good macro mode. It's overall blurrier and noisier than the main camera in mixed light, which you can see here quite well. The camera of the Razr 40 is perfectly okay and you can capture some nice pictures with it, but it has its limits and you can bump into them every now and then. And there's no optical zoom. This is a 2x zoom and I think it looks okay, but more than that gets pixelated quite quickly. The selfie camera is not good and not bad either. It's nothing special, but you can always use the main camera for selfies, although not as convenient as on the Razr Ultra. Conclusion: the Moto Razr 40 costs 899 euros. That is still not cheap, but it is way cheaper than the competition. And Motorola really took the right compromises, so you really don't notice the lower price too bad. And that's really nice. The only thing that bothered me is the smaller outside screen. I'm pretty much forced to open and close the device a lot throughout the day, and with the Moto Razr Ultra that was not the case. But the same criticism can be applied to the Samsung Flip 4, and that's the only real competition because it went down in price quite a lot. You can get it from 700 euros to 800 euros depending on the color, and that's a good price. So which one should you pick? I personally do like the design, the display and the software on Motorola better, and that's why I prefer this device, but the camera and the water resistance on Samsung is better, and maybe you do prefer the Samsung software. I don't know. That's it for my video. I hope I see you on the next one. Bye.